Welcome to season 2 of Jay and Chelle Show and Tell podcast. Listen, like we did last season, we're going to put everything on the table in season 2. Everything except for politics. We will keep it fun. We're going to keep it interesting. We're going to keep it sexy. And for sure, we will keep it real. And with that being said, hello.
Hi.
Let's get to it. Welcome to another episode of Jay and Chelle's Show and Tell. And listen, we are sponsored by no other than 3 Nicks Tap Room. 3 Nicks Tap Room is located 14594 Eureka Road. Best place to go watch basketball, football, Thursday night football, Monday night football, hockey, UFC fights. So big shout out to Nick for sponsoring this show today.
Oh, and don't forget about their Sunday brunch.
Sunday brunch also.
9:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. And they have a Bloody Mary and mimosa bar, which I can't wait to check out.
Exactly. Well, there she is. What's up, Chelle? How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I am good. I'm excited. We have a guest today.
Special guest.
We have
special guest.
We have the one and only Mr. Rob Johnson here today. What's going on, brother?
Oh, nothing much. Thanks for having me.
Good. So today is Halloween. Happy Halloween.
Thank you.
Rob's in the hot seat.
Rob's in the hot seat today. So what I wanted to tell Rob was we first of all, we do appreciate you. We do appreciate the tips and everything that you give us when it comes to podcasting. And I know there's a lot of folks out there that wants to start a podcast, may not know how to start a podcast or even which route to go when it comes to starting a podcast. So today we just wanted to ask you, some questions of, how you starting, like what's the next move or first move for someone when that may be interested in starting a podcast.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's a lot to it, and there's a lot that people miss. And starting a podcast is one of the easiest things to do, but it's one of the hardest things to stay consistent with. Mm-hmm. And that's probably the first thing that people mistake is they focus so much on, it's kind of like you ever have a friend that's going to start a company and they put on Facebook, I'm going to do this company, and everyone builds all this hype around it.
Yeah.
And then they either A, never do it, or B, they do it half-ass.
Mm-hmm.
That's the same thing with the podcast is everyone builds the hype around the idea and not the execution. So that's the first thing is actually have a plan to stick through it more than 15 episodes. Mm-hmm. So you can actually see what you have here.
Yeah.
And we're almost there. I think this is show 13.
This is show 15.
It is?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Shame on me.
Yes.
I should be fired.
Who are you right now?
I know, right? Well, that's the same thing we experienced. We wanted to do this. Luckily, Jay found your amazing studio and company just by Googling and said, hey, we should check this out. And we did. And here we are. So we're very thankful for you and your team here. And super excited about what we've done so far and what's to come.
Yeah, for sure. And I get your point, Rob, when you say, someone may, start a business and then, lose confidence or half-assed it or whatever the case may be. I've been there before. So I am definitely guilty of that. So what tips do you can you give for someone who, may be feeling that it's not going the route they want it to go or it's going slow? What type of tips can you give to that person that confidence is a little bit low when it comes to podcasting?
Yeah, if the confidence is low and you need a boost, the first thing you need to think about is you actually need to do a self-assessment. So think about, is your want to do the podcast focused on what other people think, or is it built around what you actually want to do? Mm-hmm. So are you going off of, the admonition of your peers, or are you going off of you actually having a good idea that you think you can execute? If it's just solely based on what people think about you, then odds are it doesn't have a lot of staying power. So that would be the first thing, is really focus on the actual mission of the podcast. What are we trying to solve here? What are we trying to accomplish? Is it just conversations? Is it a hobbyist podcast? Does it actually have a logical conclusion, like a short form show like Serial? Or is it something that has, staying power to go into the 500s, like a, Joe Rogan or a, Adam Carolla or something like that?
Mm-hmm. Okay. You got some questions for Rob?
Well, I was wondering, who's your favorite employee? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Put you right on the spot.
No, it's Johnny.
Of course.
Johnny, it's a fun story. Johnny used to be my boss, actually. So
Really?
when Johnny and I worked at the same company, and when he retired from that company, and when I started this, I was like, I need someone that I can trust to actually.
Absolutely.
So I pulled him out of retirement.
Awesome.
Kind of like they used to do to Vinny Testaverde back in the day. and Johnny's been a huge mentor to me. So it's just having him here is a tremendous benefit for me.
So he's like Tom Brady. I'm retiring. Just kidding.
Yeah, he's still married. Johnny's still married.
Oh, that's
though.
good. Good thing.
Yeah.
Now, Rob, as far as the podcasting, did you have a podcast before you started this particular company?
I did.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So I've been podcasting since 2014.
Okay.
Wow. OG.
Yeah, one of the originals. So basically I was doing a lot of writing on like philosophy and philosophy of religion, and doing a lot on just a lot of like thought work back in the day. And so I started writing papers, and I got invited onto some shows to talk about and debate, some of my positions, and then that turned into a podcast, and that turned into another podcast, and that just kind of got me off and running. But the thing that got me into podcasting was like I was listening to so many podcasts that the audio sucked. Like it was so bad. And I was like, if like you can have the best thing to say.
There has to be a better way.
Yeah, well, so you can have the best thing to say, but like if no one can understand it or like bear to listen to the audio quality for more than 5 minutes, like no one cares what you have to say. So I was like, surely there's a more efficient way to do this. And then it just kind of evolved over time. And when I was doing my MBA, I was like, hey, what if we had a creative agency that also had a podcast studio? And we were able to use this from a business and hobbyist perspective to help people grow something meaningful.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. You go ahead.
I was gonna say that's one of the things we get the most compliments on is the AV, the audio visual that that people experience if somebody sees someone else. Isaiah had mentioned before, someone saw him watching our podcast and they were like, "Hey, who's that? And what where are they?" Because the sound and visual quality was so good. So that is one of the things that we really do love and get a ton of compliments and feedback on.
It wasn't always the case. The audio was always there. The audio, I think, was always, an 8 to 9. And there's even some things we can improve on now. But the video was the thing that has taken the most amount of leaps, because when we first started out, for whatever reason, I wasn't as focused on video. I was more focused on like the actual audio. And actually back in the day, when we first opened, I had the soundboard on the table.
Oh, wow.
Because my initial thought was like, well, how cool would it be if like you came in to have your own podcast and one of the like Jay controls the board? It's like, well, shit, Jay doesn't know how to control the board. Like, what a stupid idea.
No, I don't think it's stupid, because sometimes I'd like to have a drop. Like if I say a joke that's not funny, I would like go womp womp. Yeah. Like I like to push my own button. Like you suck, Michelle. Or when Jay says something funny, or I would like a cheers button. Like like that's so funny. Like.
And see, I'm more than certain that Jay's capable of
Just like that, yes.
Hey.
Exactly. I need that audio drop at my fingertips at all times, and the womp womp.
I'll see what I can do.
Thanks.
Yeah, so that's funny. Thanks, Grant. Hey, this is why Grant is so good at what he does. He knows what to do when at the time to do it. So, however, it's funny you said what you said earlier about audio, because the very first time me and Chelle was talking about doing a podcast, we first thought of just doing it ourselves, like buying mics, making some space in the basement, soundproof things like that. But when we actually sat and really thought about it, that can become one, very expensive. Two, we have no experience in setting anything like that up. Now, I used to do music. I know how to set up a booth, but however,
Jay's a rapper.
I'm retired. A retired rapper. Don't look me up, please.
He'll come out. He'll come out of retirement.
But anyway, so we were trying to figure out which route to go to buy all the equipment, or do we let's put everything else on someone else's back. Yeah. And that's what made me, go to Google, look for podcasts. And that's when I found this particular studio. Now I found a lot of different studios, but something just felt right about this particular one, what I was seeing online. And that's what triggered me to give you guys a call, triggered us to give you guys a call and just say, hey, you know what? Let's put it all on their back. They handle everything. We'll just go in there with our content, our conversation, and we'll just take it from there. So for for the folks that may think about starting a podcast, and they're thinking like, hey, let's just go and get equipment, this and that. again, it can become very expensive. What do you how can I ask this question? Do you recommend, and I probably know your answer to this already because you do own a studio, for a person with absolutely no experience, would you recommend them to take that investment and just put it on someone else's back, you know, your back, and then just come in with the content? Because when you're constantly thinking about the investment, if you got everything set plus the content, it could become overwhelming.
Absolutely. And that's the thing you have to think about is what I tell people all the time is even on the marketing side, like some of the complex things we do with like targeted advertising, you can go on YouTube and learn them. Like I didn't, like all of the education I've had taught me nothing about this business. YouTube, peers, trial and error, like that's been the best educator. So you can go and learn anything that you want. The question is, do you want to do that? You know, how much is your time worth, right? So if you guys both have, you know, businesses or careers or jobs and you're spending 4 or 5 hours a week on the pre-production, the recording, post-production, putting it on social media, you know, let's say you're spending 6 hours a week on that. Is that 24 hours a month worth it to you? And if it is, great. If you enjoy it, great. But most people, they want to do it, but they don't want to do the, you know, it's like, how fun would it be to go to a carnival where you got to set up the Ferris wheel, you can ride it, and then you got to take it down and put it away.
I do not trust myself to do that. So
yeah, like how much fun would that be? It's like, I got to put all of these tracks in this roller coaster before I can ride this damn thing. And that's it, is we sell time more than anything.
Yes.
So that's what we want people to look at. So there's people that can, like when I had my first podcast, I had a Yeti mic, webcam, put everything together in the computer, and then off to the races. And that's fine. But it's a matter of how big do you want to scale it? What do you want to do with it? Do you want the technical expertise of, you know, the production engineer by your side walking you through it, the creative team helping you scale? It's just a matter of what you want to do with it.
It's a perfect comparison too. Like I don't want to go set up my own ride and then ride it. There's no fun. And we have the luxury of your expertise and knowledge of you and your team, and the fact that we literally walk in here, professional, everything, walk in, record, walk out. And we know there is other work that we do have to put into it, but it's not nearly the amount of work that we would have to put into editing, uploading, and all of that stuff with our own podcast. So this is definitely the right avenue
for sure. I mean, it's definitely a monkey off our backs, because time is very important. And let's face it, we ain't got time for that shit. Like I know I don't have time for it.
No, we do not.
So the investment is definitely working, and just by looking at our particular podcast, we're seeing great things with it. We're seeing great things with numbers, viewers, subscribers, and things like that. And more we're getting complimented on the podcast. And I think that has a great deal to do with the quality for sure. And not just the quality, maybe the content also.
Well, the expertise that we get. I mean, we do a show and, you know, you guys are brutally honest, which is great. We need that constructive. We're our own biggest critics. We walk out of plenty of shows being like, oh gosh, that was bad. And, you know, Grant will be like, no, that was great. Or, you know, and then he does his magic with editing. So that's where, you know, we really, really appreciate the feedback. And we haven't yet gotten it's a no for me from Grant. So, so we're thankful for that. That wasn't it.
Right.
It's a no for me, dog.
Yeah.
Well, we haven't gotten that yet. So
well, the cool thing about your guys' show is like you can have like creatively, we've all seen great directors and producers put out really bad work because the story wasn't there.
Yeah.
It's the same thing for podcasting, right? Like Grant, myself, Johnny, Julia, like everyone here, the engineers podcast, like we can all inform and construct and guide people, but it's kind of like if, you know, if you and I are making like an awesome dinner and we only have like great value brand materials, like there's only so much we can do, right? We need, you know, it's rump roast compared to the filet. Like we want, you need the story there. And for you guys, you're both incredibly talented at hosting a podcast and the relationship on air back and forth and how you bring guests in. Like you guys do a really good job. So when you have people that know what they're doing, it makes production a lot easier because you can do more with it.
And that's
awesome.
it. Thank you for that. It's a great compliment.
Thank you.
I think Chelle all right. You know, I mean, no, she's great.
I wasn't going to pick who my favorite was.
But really, if you had to pick a favorite between me and Jay, who is it?
Michelle. It's always you. It's going to be you for sure. But you are
we're
a
good
great
team.
We are a great team. So let the listeners know, Rob, what you do offer here as far as, what your team does. I mean, we're always bragging about the team, but just let the listeners know what Speakeasy's.
Yeah. Yeah, so for the podcast studio, largely we want people to walk in, record, and leave and have everything else taken care of. So obviously you have to have some type of show direction. You have to have some type of on-air presence. The biggest question I get is, will you host my podcast for me? Like they want me to sit in the chair. We're
going to start a podcast, and guess what? You're on it all the time.
Well, that happened twice last week where people came in and like, we have this really great idea for a podcast. We think you're perfect to host it. And I was like, I'm expensive. So if you want me to host your podcast, like that's an investment because every hour or 2 hours that I'm in here, I could be out there, making more money for the company, just practically speaking. So, so that's a big commitment to take over hosting a show. You guys know that, and then multiply it by 2 or 3. But for us,
we're available for hire though, if they want us to host
it. For sure.
I love it. So for us, we do everything from obviously the audio and video pre-production. So helping get the show set up, structured, the cover art, all of the feeds that you need, Apple, Spotify, iHeart, Google, getting all of that registered and listed and managed. And then post-production. So when you guys leave the studio, we take the audio and the video, we make sure everything is leveled and mastered well. We make sure anything that shouldn't have been said on air, anything that doesn't make the show sound smooth is cut out. And then we put it all together in a nice package where there's, one part audio, one part video, and then it goes out to all the major platforms. And what makes us different is we'll take that and we'll also cut it up into social media. So Speakeasy is owned by Wayne Media, the other company I own, and it's all creative based. So we'll take the 60-second clips and develop shorts or TikTok or, we'll put the full form YouTube video out there. And we'll also schedule content and write the copy for you on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all that jazz.
I think for me, that was the biggest thing I struggled with when we were thinking of doing our own. It wasn't so much the equipment because I knew we could get some research in and figure out what equipment do you buy, what would be good. But for me, it was more the uploading to the platforms, which platforms do you upload to, and the editing. Those were the 2 things that I thought I have zero experience in any of that. So that's why having you do it for us is so convenient.
Yeah, for sure. Plus, I wasn't about to mess up my man cave, and
that's right. There's too much shenanigans going on down there for a recording studio.
Yes,
absolutely.
And just to let the listeners know, everything Rob has told us and or promised us, he has came through on it.
That's right.
From the very first time he came here, how he broke everything down, everything seemed perfect, and that's why we just said yes, let's do this. But his entire team is excellent. So I would highly recommend Speakeasy for any type of podcast you want to do. Rob, where can you let them know your locations that you have?
Yeah, so right now we're really focused on just the Brighton location. So I have 2 or 3 others in my mind that I want to work towards getting
Canton,
spun up. But
Michigan.
Right next to in Jay's man cave. Down there.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I have a couple others that I want to spin up, but right now we're really focused in the Brighton market. So we're in downtown Brighton, right next to Stout, across the street from Jameson's. Pretty good location down here. And then hopefully in the next 6 to 12 months we'll have 2 or 3 others in the air.
Okay. And what do you have coming up personally as far as your podcast or with Wayne Media?
Yeah. So actually we're in pre-production on a new show. So pretty much the whole time I've had the company, I've had 2 podcasts. One is called More Than Marketing. It's kind of an in-depth look at, how marketing agencies ought to operate. And the second one was called Wayncast, where I'd interview a bunch of, friends, business owners, and we would just kind of chat about industry trends. I'm getting ready to launch a 3rd show. It's in pre-production.
We haven't been asked to be on
now.
there yet, though.
Yes. Well, I haven't even started it yet. I'm still waiting for the creative team to give me a name for it. So, so as soon as we can name it, then we're going to start getting people on there. And largely the premise of that show is there's a lot of business philosophies that people talk about. But like, let's say Jay, you owned Shopify, right? And I invite you on, and right.
Me too.
Dude, this is a funny story. I invested in Shopify when it was at $90 a share, and then it went up to like $240, and I was so pumped. So I was like, I knew it. I was so excited.
That's a good feeling.
But the big thing is like, so I invite on the CEO of Shopify, right? And like most of the show is spent talking about him, his background. I don't want to do any of that. I don't care. Like the listeners don't care. I mean, they can go and read your Wikipedia page, right? I want to talk about business philosophies that actually drive business. So that's what we're going to be discussing is like what actually makes a difference in business. So if someone invites me on their show, like I can sit there and talk about my background history for like an hour, but like what we're doing right now, we're talking about podcasting, like what actually makes a podcast successful. Like that's what people I would think would want to hear more than about me.
Okay, for sure.
So this is a relatively new industry, right? How old is the podcast industry? And I think there's a lot of room for growth. And I think we got in it at a good time. Maybe even a little late, but I still think good time.
I'll give you the trend. So podcasting started as an art form in 2007. It caught popularity largely due to NPR's series called Serial, and that's when we saw consumer listenership of podcasting spike. There's a lot of pioneers to podcasting, Bill Burr, Joe Rogan, Adam Carolla. It largely started in the stand-up comedian space, people having long-form discussions kind of by themselves. And then it turned into more of a collaborative art form. And then in 2015, it started to go into the B2B side. So a lot of businesses. Okay. And then in 2018, 2019, we started to see businesses pick up and start their own shows. And then during COVID, it exploded. What was cool though is like during COVID it exploded, but then 2 years after, about 500,000 podcasts just started and ended.
Yeah,
which just tells me that people are being bored.
You have to give them you said 15 episodes is kind of the key.
Yeah, and largely I want to see
through that.
Yeah, what I want people to see is like 6 months, right?
Sure.
Is like what does that 6 month period look like, and are you enjoying it? Are you happy with it? Like does it make you happy? If it doesn't, I shouldn't do it anymore. You should probably figure out a change that would make you happy with that particular art form. Like anytime that I've had a show like Wayncast, I got tired of doing it. So I got to episode 80. And I was like, I'm just done. Like I have nothing else to say on this particular subject. I want to do something new that excites me. And that's okay to stop and start. You know, what's not okay is I'm on episode 400 and I hate my life. You know, that's not okay.
I do know multiple people who have more than one podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And that's something that I would definitely have as a goal. Can you, I'm interested in why should businesses or can you talk a little bit about podcast advertising or sponsoring podcasts?
Well, businesses, this is a wave that has yet to peak, and business owners like they usually are going to be the last people to jump on the trend, right? Business owners were just creating a MySpace account as they were taking their last breath, and it's a typical fashion where consumers are much easier to adapt to trends than businesses, largely just because of the. It's like having a rowboat versus a cruise ship. It's easier to turn one than the other. And for the business owners, podcast sponsorship offers something that sponsoring things through a chamber of commerce or even billboard advertising or print advertising, it gives you something that is not there, which is staying power, right? So if I advertise on your podcast, that episode, as long as your feeds don't ever get taken down, is always going to be up there. So if someone goes back and listens to episode 15, that advertisement's going to be there, right? The tap room that's sponsoring you, their 2, 4, 6, 8 episodes, how many episodes they sponsor are always going to be there.
That's right.
And if you structure a sponsorship properly, you should have 3 things in it. You should have an ad. You should have a backlink, which is incredibly helpful for social media, especially when you're on a really big platform like Sounder, like we are. And then the third thing is a social media mention, which helps with your local SEO as well. So there's a lot of benefits through podcast sponsorship beyond the listener numbers, beyond the transactions that occur. There's a lot of credibility and staying power that's there that isn't there in other advertising platforms. I can advertise in a magazine, someone's going to get it and throw it away.
True.
It's not there anymore, right? And
sure.
no one's going to go back to that digital edition of Good Housekeeping July 2021. Like no one cares,
right?
I would imagine they don't. Right?
No, I don't think so.
Even like my wife, she has, Magnolia Journal is the only magazine she subscribes to, and it's excellent. But we don't go back and read issues from 3-4 years ago.
Right, for sure.
As great as it is.
Do you even save those? Yeah.
Right.
I mean, keep them around. I think Playboy is the only thing that people save. Old
no,
issues
I don't have mine anymore.
I didn't say you. I said people. I know people who have like boxes.
Actually, I was more of a hustler guy, but
that does not surprise me at all.
That's another conversation.
It's another episode.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Makes complete sense now, doesn't it? No one here is surprised.
Right, for sure. Anyways, you have any more questions, Michelle, for Rob here?
Not really. I want to know, do you have any questions for us?
One of my favorite questions to ask is kind of what has been the most difficult part of the process for you?
I'm awkward right now.
The difficult part of the process.
Well, and the reason I ask is because you guys have a really interesting dynamic. Like you guys are dating, right? So that's been on the podcast, right? I didn't ruin a
No.
Okay, all right. Just make sure. So that has to be incredibly difficult. Not to like pull back the curtain too much, but like if I was dating someone and we had a podcast and we had a fight and we had to come in and record, it's like son of a like I don't.
Oh well,
do
listen.
this.
You know what? Listen. By all means, listen. Jay and Michelle is not perfect. We done beefed out. Plenty times. You know, we just try to leave the beef
Jay's
outside of Brighton doors.
But now
you know,
Jay is.
I mean, we went back and forth on the way here about something.
Sure.
But
That's why we nailed down the chairs before y'all come in. It was probably Jerry Springer.
So I would say the most difficult part is we both have different visions, but the same vision. If that makes sense.
We have different visions, but the same goal.
Same goal.
Yes. Yeah.
Same goal.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that make more sense. It's early. However, so
We're used to being here like the last part of the day.
know, right?
This is like
yes,
8 a.m.
I say we've had little beats about what we're going to do as far as topics. We have a full list of topics, but it's like, okay, Michelle say one topic, I say one topic. We don't have a third person to break that tie. We had a conversation last week, like, hey, put your ideas on the table. I'll put mine on the table. We'll put them together and we'll pull one out. Other than that, we're fine. And that's not an everyday occurrence or every episode occurrence type of thing. It's just more of what we would like to do that day. So that's probably like, I believe, one of our biggest challenges. Again, I don't have any huge challenges because, like I said before, we put everything on your back. So there's certain things that most people would, consider a challenge or be stressed out about. We don't have to deal with that particular factor. So
Makes sense.
I think, for me, it's timing. It's time. Like all of the things we do put on your company, thankfully we have that because, I think for us, we're busy socially, family, jobs, it's just hard for us. So finding that time to focus on what we want to do with the show and the direction and the goals that we have, I think for me, that's the biggest thing. And we're always, no matter what kind of business we'd be in together, I think there would always be, if you're with somebody like dating them or married to them and have a business together, I think there's always going to be that challenge that you talked about.
Every now and then you need a healthy cuss out. I need a healthy cuss out.
Yeah.
Or yelling,
We move on. We move on.
It's all good.
Is that Jay has a stronger cuss out voice than I do.
I don't even use profanity.
Oh, you don't? No.
Grant, roll the tape.
Right? I believe our last show had to have like explicit lyrics or explicit sticker on the cover. So
Exactly.
A 90s rap album.
For
Exactly.
sure.
Well, that's what's interesting is like in any relationship, even like professional, even here, like within our offices, like we all have creative differences and we all get frustrated creatively sometimes because, you have 10 people who are all talented in a room talking about, something that they all believe in. It can be difficult. Yeah. And that's one thing I didn't mention when you guys talked about like the team, like make no mistake about it. I don't do day-to-day operations here. I have my assistant, Julia, she runs Speakeasy. Grant and Johnny are phenomenal engineers. Like Grant obviously runs this show and does a great job at it. So like I wouldn't have a company if it wasn't for my team.
Right,
so it's not
sure.
like I'm the one pulling all the levers every day. I've been very fortunate to find a group of people that have been able to work with me to take me to where I'm at right now.
For sure.
And that's been my favorite part. That's my favorite part of everything I do here is seeing this team mature. We have a lot of young people here. And for a lot of people, this is their first career out of college. And seeing them take such giant steps in a year or even 6 months. I had one girl that's been working for me for less than a year. And the other day I was like, you've been here, over a year now? And she's like, I just crossed 6 months.
Wow.
Because it just feels like it's been so long and people are so ingrained into, the systems that we have here. It's really cool.
But that's the testament to a true leader. I mean, that's how a business should be run. They, you guide them, you give them the freedom. You're hiring talented people to do what they're supposed to do, and you just lead and guide or coach. but they want to do a good job for you. And so I think that's just a testament of how you are as an owner and as a boss. So good job.
Well, I appreciate that. And one quick anecdote I'll tell, and Grant, you can cut this out if you don't let me put this in here. But
leave that shit.
Don't cut it out, Grant.
Yeah.
Oh, I cussed. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So listeners, Grant won't roll the tape. He'll just fast forward it to right now. So when Grant's like first or second week here, we had a rather complicated social media question that came in from one of our podcasters. And typically what I would usually think is someone new would bring it to me. We'd talk about it and they'd email them back. Right. Grant just emailed them back.
Oh,
he's
not
like,
Grant.
he's like, here's what we should do. A, B, C, D. And then he copied me on it and didn't say anything to me about it. He just sent it. And I was like, shit, well, that's exactly what I would have said to them.
Awesome,
It was
Grant.
just, it just took me by surprise.
That was excellent right there. For sure.
I want that button on my soundboard too, please.
But that's what's really cool is you get to see people that have different drives and initiatives and are willing to not push the boundaries, but they're just willing to, keep leveling up, even what beyond my expectations are.
That's awesome.
Which has been really cool.
Great.
Yeah.
Anything else, Chelle?
Not right now.
Not right now. Well, listen, guys, thank you so much for joining in another episode of Jay and Chelle Show and Tell. Please do not forget to subscribe, like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. To listen, please
TikTok.
go to Sound and TikTok. And to listen, please go to Sounder, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Once again, we definitely want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Nick, 3 Nick's Tap Room, located on Eureka Road in Southgate, Michigan. We would definitely be there on Thursdays and Sundays for football. He does have UFC fights,
No
hockey,
cover charge.
no cover charge, DJ, karaoke. Nick, 3 Nick's Tap Room is a great bar downriver.
And give them a follow on their socials too. They're on Instagram and also on Facebook. 3 Nick's Tap Room.
You
So
can find
check
3
them out.
Nicks on those
See
particular
all the things
websites.
that they have going on.
Yep, for sure. And once again, thank you so much. Until next time. Peace.
Thanks, Rob, too, for joining us.
Yeah.
We appreciate
Thank you, Rob,
so
for
much.
joining us. Oh my God. How could I forget about Rob? Thanks, Rob, for joining us for real. We do
Most people
appreciate
do.
that.
It's cool.
Till next time.
Awesome.
Peace.
Thank you.